All right, guys, today we got a 2006 Ford Escape. It's got a misfire, and it's also got a big story behind the misfire. So let's get into it. Okay, so vehicle came in, client just brought it in, said it had a misfire, and we've got quite a few pages here of notes. It's basically the story behind what happened, and it's quite in depth. Okay, it's quite in depth. So it's a little disjointed on what he's saying as far as the timeline, I think, goes. But basically, what it comes down to is there's a misfire. It blew a spark plug out of it. He said that he replaced. So 2 weeks ago, it says he blew the spark plug out in the parking lot at 2 to 3 miles an hour out of cylinder number 1, and he disconnected the coil and drove it home 50 miles home with the coil disconnected, with the spark plug blown out of it. So he removed the intake and tapped the spark plug and was able to get a new insert in it. That's what he says here. And something about nicked the top of the cylinder enough to dislodge some carbon off the top of it. Put score on top of cylinder, did not do a compression check. Okay, so they put the new coil on the plug, placed some vacuum lines, and an EGR gasket. And then he did 3,800 RPM or something. It misses. We removed the spark plug. The electrode was pushed together. Okay, so I don't know. That's the story. All right, so we're going to put that over here. Here's what it is. I pulled it in. It is missing like real bad. So what the first thing I want to do is, I am concerned about the compression, so I'm going to get something hooked up to it, and then we're going to test the compression on it. We're going to do a relative compression test on it the easy way. So I'm going to do that, get it hooked up. I'll be right back. We've got the hood open. We're going to hook a maintainer up so we can do a relative compression test on it. I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Let me show you what we found right off the bat. This always makes it fun. Come on into the battery. So we've got the incorrect battery in it, okay? Because the cable is too short to reach, they've evidently added this on, which is, yeah, crazy. That's the only other word for it. The positive post, the terminal is completely broken. So, and then we've got these posts screwed in there. Don't really like that. I mean, I'm assuming it's held down good. No, it's not. And I mean, that post is sitting here. Yeah. What are we here to do? We are here to find a misfire. So we're going to mention that stuff, but let's move on. Let's find the misfire. Come on, let's do the relative compression test. All right, so we've got the E-scan hooked up to it. Let's just go ahead and look at the codes real quick. Cylinder 1 misfire and a large leak on the evap, okay? So we're going for the cylinder 1 misfire right now. So let's just focus on that. Gonna go over here to sharpshooter. Gonna go to compression, relative compression test. We're gonna go ahead and start test. We're going to, now this is a Ford, so I can do clear flood with my foot on the floor. And then, now it says make sure the battery charger is not connected. It's not really a charger, it's a maintainer, and this thing only had about 11.5 volts in it. So I just want to do this. I think we're going to be all right. So see what happens here. And it does sound okay. Sounds like it's got pretty good compression on the cylinders. Looks pretty even. I don't see an issue with that, so let's just go ahead and put this in there as escape relative compression. Okay, so that, all right, so that looks good to me. No issues. So I think we're going to move on from there. Luckily at this point I don't see any issue with the compression, so I think maybe he's lucky there. We don't assume that yet. This is our first step. So if we want to verify that it is cylinder number 1, we can go into, I think, go into mode 6 here. And we can go into forward, that's 2003 through 2019. And we can go read continuous. I'll start it. All right, now right now it's reading, it's relatively smooth right this second. We'll put it in drive. And if we go down, we can see cylinder number 1 that counts. And if I take it, just give it a little power brake, it goes right there. It's really skipping bad. So it's going to read it continuous. So it's going to read it. Then you can see that the number went up, right? And none of the other ones are doing anything. So it's definitely cylinder 1. So this is a way of doing it if you don't have a scan tool that has the Misfire. I mean, obviously with Ford, we could put the Ford tool on here. You could put an Altel on here. You put a Snap-on on here. You can get Misfire data when you're in the Ford side, but in the just regular old generic side, you can still get it through OBD2, through the mode 6, and still get the data. So we know it's on 1 now. So now I'm going to have to find out where is cylinder 1. I don't know where cylinder 1 is on this car, so I'm going to go find that out. Okay, so we find out where number 1 is. Let me show you how to do that for those of you that know how to use all data. It's just going to take a second. We go right over here to maintenance, which is right there, and then click on maintenance, and then I'm going to come down. Click on maintenance, and I'm going to come down to tune-up and engine performance checks, and then cylinder identification, number 1 cylinder. If you need the firing order, you got the firing order. You got a lot of good stuff in this one. A lot of people don't go into this tab, but this is like my go-to tab. So cylinder number 1, this is the front of the engine. Cylinder number 1 is going to be over here. So on this engine, unfortunately, that means cylinder number 1 is right here. So it's underneath the intake manifold, hard to get to. We can see the coil from over here. There's the coil right here. So the first thing I want to do is, I kind of got a gut feeling from it because of the way it's skipping. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that maybe don't leave a comment down below what you think about this, but I have always felt like if we're dealing with an ignition skip, and I think in scope patterns, and I know a lot of people was like, oh, this guy pulls out a scope for everything. I think in scope patterns. I think of the way they look. So when I feel like there's an ignition skip, I feel like it's a sharp skip, right? So I feel like it's if we think about a square wave, right? It's on, off, on, off, on, off. So when I feel like it's a fuel skip, depending on what's wrong with it, generally it's a more rounded skip. It's more of a, more of a, the only way I can describe it is it's more rounded, right? So that's the way I think. This one feels like an ignition skip. It feels like a really hard, jerky skip. Now, let me go show you some data. We're going to try to prove that out. So I've always been taught, and again, leave a comment down there if you've been told something different, that I'm going to close this door because when I put it in gear, it's going to want to ding. So I've always been taught that if it's a fuel skip, so something with the fuel injector or something wrong in the fuel part of it, that the fuel trims would go way out, like in the 20 to 25% range, depending on how many cylinders are on that bank, right? So there's 3 cylinders on this bank. If we lose fuel or something like that, we're going to get a really big correction on fuel. If it's an ignition skip, it's going to stay in the 10% range, or maybe somewhere in that range, maybe less, maybe a tiny bit more. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get this thing to skip again. So I'm just going to power brake it, and we're just going to look. So here's the long-term, short-term on bank 1, which is going to be where our suspect cylinder is, and then we have our short-term, long-term on bank 2. Now what we always want to do is add these together, all right, for our total fuel trim on those banks. So right now, if you see on bank 1, we're running right at 0, 1%, 2%, 3, negative, right, positive. It's just bouncing back and forth. And then we've got -3. So we're running about 0. It's bouncing around 0 a little bit, maybe, right in that area. And then on the bank 2, we can see we're roughly the same thing, okay? So let's go ahead and try to get it to skip. See if I can't get it to skip and hold the skip, because this thing, it doesn't want to do it every single time. There it was. Hang on. I want to get it to do it, and then I'm trying, guys. It's just, it'll do it. Oh, it's tried to there. I don't want to get the transmission too hot, so.
Why are you trying to do this?
I want to see what the fuel trims do on that bank when it's really skipping, when it's like going, when it's skipping. All right, hang on. I just got to get it just to want to do it. Now it's going to want to run smooth. There it goes. There it is. All right, so it was skipping pretty good right there, and it did it for just a little bit. And what we saw is, I mean, it was pretty much a dead skip right there, and the fuel trims went to roughly 9% on that bank, and held there. So, and we can see kind of, it went up here, but you can see they really went up on this, right in that area, and they went up to about 9-10%. So we see the 10, we see roughly 2, so 10-12%, whereas the other bank we were sitting at about, you know, really 0-ish, maybe 4 or 5. Okay, so bank, that just shows me that bank 1, the suspect, you know, with the suspect cylinder on it, when it skips pretty bad, and you know, if you get one that just skips constantly, this is really easy to do because you can just sit there and watch it. If it's sitting around 10% right in that area, which is where we were, this is going to be an ignition skip. I feel like this is going to be an ignition skip. I guess possibly it could be maybe engine related, you know, mechanical, but we've already proven that that's probably not that, and it feels like an ignition skip. So now we got to figure out how we're going to prove that out, because he's already put a spark plug and a coil in it. Now I have no idea where the spark plug and the coil came from, so let's see if we can't get a I'm going to see if we can't get an E-cop squeezed in there a little bit, where I can get a scope pattern on that suspect coil there. So give me a minute. It's going to take me a minute. I'm going to try to, here's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to come in and come under here where my finger is right now, and I don't think I'm going to get one there, but maybe I can get one at the base, or yeah, I can probably get it right here. If I can get it down here at this base, maybe I might be able to pick up a signal here. So I'm going to see if I can't, if wherever I put it here, I'll put another one on the front where a good bank, and then I'll show you guys how I'm doing that. See if we can't get a signal. So all we're trying to do is pick up that inductive signal of that coil firing. So let me get that stuff hooked up, and it's going to take me a minute to get there, and then we'll come back and we'll look at those readings, and then hopefully we can get this thing to skip pretty good while we're looking at that data. We've got the E-cops hooked up. Let me show you how we've got them hooked up. So, because they're not the easiest ones to get to. So I've got 3 cylinders. I can't get to the other 2 back ones. They're way too difficult to get to, but I can get to the one that we think is bad. I mean, in a pinch, I probably could have got to what is that, cylinder number 3, I think it is, over here. I don't need to, so I'm not going to try to get my hand in there. You may have seen this in another video. Let me go ahead and show you now. So I take the E-cops. Let me show you what you guys what it looks like. I'm sure you've seen it in other videos. So this is the E-cop, and what I do is, let me grab another one. So I take it. I just take some. Somebody took it. Where'd it go? I just take some rubbing alcohol. Anyway, I put it on a rag, and I just clean it up, and I try to get it on the coil too, right, to clean it up so to stick. And then I use this alien tape, So this was introduced to me by Joe Casey, great guy, sells some good stuff online. This stuff is sticky as can be, and it's got a little cover on it. And what I do is I just slice it into a little piece that's big enough to go on the E-cop. And I just take and do this, right? And then I'll peel that off. I will have cleaned this, and then I just stick it on here, and then I just peel the clear off, and believe me, it's going to stick to whatever you put it on. Usually only good for about one stick, but you might get two out of it. But anyway, that's how I use the E-cops. There's little clips and things you can use, but I just find that if I can get it on there and just stick it, I'm trying to get going, right? So, all right, so let's come on in. I'll show you what we got. I'm on, I don't even know what the cylinder numbers are, to be quite honest with you guys. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're on 4, we're on 5, and we're on 1. Okay, the one on 1, if you can see back here, all I did was, I don't know, y'all can see it through the camera, I think, is I just took that and I just stuck it right to the side of that coil, right? And you can definitely see that that coil is different than the other coils. So he has replaced it. I just stuck it to the side of it. That's all I need to do. It's on there. It's going to pick up. And I've got signal on all 3 of them. We can clearly see the red trace is different immediately. Well, what does different mean? Well, you got to, this is something that learning about ignition patterns and ignition waveforms, you can tell a lot from them. You can tell a lot about in-cylinder. So let's go over to, let's bring this inside because I'm going to have to give it some gas. And this is one thing that I do, guys, is I've got a nice long cord, depending on how you use the the E-scope. I've just got the E-scope sitting here. If you get it with the tablet, that's great. You're on the tablet, then you run your leads out. I try to keep this just, when I'm doing stuff like this, close to where I'm at, so I don't have to have the extra long leads on it. And then I just run a really long cable for the tablet. So, and this is just a Microsoft Surface. So. All right, come on around over here. So right off the bat, let's just look at the waveform and let's kind of delve into it just a little bit and what the waveform's telling you. I'm gonna take the red one off real quick, just because, and I've moved this thing sideways and everything, so that's why this is kind of off a little bit. No big deal. So if we look at the green and the yellow, we see that we get a nice spark line. We got a good firing line and a spark line. Okay, so this is what it's taking to jump across the spark plug. Okay, go through the coil boot, jump across the spark plug, and then here we are actually ionizing and going across the spark plug. This is what's happening in the cylinder across the spark plug. Okay, now what I've always been told is if you look and break that in half, so if I take that spark line and break it in half, anything that happens on this side of the half is in cylinder. Anything on this side could potentially be outside the cylinder. But we're going to see some if I rev this up, you see how we're going to see some grittiness, and the thing's going to change and all that, because that's happening inside the cylinder. We're changing the compression, we're adding more fuel, so things should happen on this. It shouldn't stay sitting here perfect like that. Okay, if you don't see any movement here at all, if you don't see something happening where this raises because we're having to actually fire that thing into the cylinder, then this thing's not firing into the cylinder. Something else is going on. So we can actually tell if you get one of the ways you can tell if one's running lean is on this half of the, if you break that in half, that spark line in half, it'll start to tail up right here. This will start to tail up, and that's because we're running out of hydrocarbons in there to burn, and it's taking more energy to burn what's in there. So that's a good way of telling one's running lean. Is this, and we'll get one that does that. I might better make this one run lean. We might do that once we go over what's going on with this car. So anyway, let's go ahead and bring the red one back up. So we can clearly, I mean, right off the bat, guys, even if you don't know the first thing about a ignition waveform, you can clearly see there's a difference there. something is wrong. So now we know something's going on the ignition side of it. We kind of proved it out, you know, just seat of the pants feel felt like ignition. Then we went into the data looking at fuel trims. You know, we used that kind of rule of thumb, you know, I hate to, you know, don't always, you know, hang your hat on that, but you know, rule of thumb, 10% on ignition ish, and then 10% ish on ignition, and then 25 or, you know, over 20% on fuel if there's a fuel misfire. So on this one, we kind of, both of those kind of pointed to ignition. Now we've got this hooked up and we can clearly see there's an issue here. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to take and put it into gear here. Let's see if we can't get this thing to misfire. I mean, right away we see it starting to, we got some things going on there. Let's see. Right there, it just misfired once. Right there. Look at that coil. Look at that coil. That coil is not firing inside that cylinder at all. Okay, you can see these are jumping all that. This is dead skip right now. This thing is, you can see the other ones, you know, and they might be just running just a touch lean right now. Not really though. You can see they're doing pretty good. And I'm at high. I'm sitting at 2,000 RPM right now. That coil is not firing into that cylinder at all. We have no, if you look at it, guys, we have no spark line whatsoever. Okay, I'm not going to sit there and just let it keep doing that. We have no spark line whatsoever, right? So that coil, either the coil is bad or possibly the boot is firing through the boot, something like that. So we're going to need to, at this point, I don't think it's spark plug at all. I think this is going to be a coil issue. Now, you know, we're going to pull the intake off, or we're going to pull his spark plug out. Here's the thing. Should we pull his spark plug out? I mean, I feel like this is the coil. I don't feel like it's a spark plug. 99 times out of 100, I'm gonna pull that spark plug out and I'm gonna inspect it. And we're probably gonna do it on this one. Here's the problem. He put an insert in this thing. So did he put the insert in correctly? Did he use Loctite on it? Is the insert gonna come out when we go to pull the spark plug out? I mean, this could turn into a bit of a train wreck, right? So that's something that we're going to need to maybe look into. Maybe we start, you know, we put a socket on it, maybe feel how it feels or something like that. But I mean, you guys understand what I'm saying there. That could turn into a problem. So, but we know 100% without question that this is an ignition misfire, and we feel really strongly this is going to be an ignition coil, that this is not an in-cylinder problem. This is not a spark plug problem. So let me, I do want to go into one of these cylinders. I think I can get to the fuel injector on one of these front cylinders here, and let's see if we can't make it run lean so you guys can see what that looks like. Sorry, I cannot make it run lean. Come in here, let me show you. My mind was not even thinking about this right. I can't get to the injectors on this. I don't know why I was thinking old school injectors being out here. So yeah, so I can't make it run lean. We'll get one though. We'll I promise you we'll get one at some point and show you that, because it's really, really helpful if you're thinking it's a injector, right? And okay, how are we going to prove an injector out? Well, we can look on here, we can see if it's running lean. And you can also, I'll tell you now, there was a guy, Mac Vanderbrink, many years ago. I think he's passed away now. He had some great scope classes, and I wish I could find some of his, and I'd like to get back into my head on these things and go back through it. But if you can ever find anything on his stuff, he was brilliant with in-cylinder and looking at ignition waveforms and telling what's going on. You can tell if you've got a burnt valve by looking at ignition waveforms. I mean, just by looking at the turbulence on the spark line. So he was really, really a scientist when it comes to that stuff. I'm nowhere near at his level, but I do think that on this one we've got it figured out. We know it's ignition. We know we feel like it's going to be the coil. The client did state that when he had this apart, he did do something with the intake bolts. That was a little, he said maybe over tighten one or something. So I don't know what we're going to get into there. So hopefully what we're going to be able to do is, I don't know if he's going to let us repair it or if he's going to want to repair it himself. So if he is going to repair it himself, that'll be the end of the video. We appreciate you watching. Give us a thumbs up, notification, all the good stuff. If it's not, if he's going to let us fix it, we're going to come back. We're going to fix it. We're going to pull the coil out. We're going to show you the before and after. We'll do the patterns after and all that. So hopefully he gives us authorization to fix it. So if so, you'll know in about 3 seconds, and we'll know in a little while. So okay, so we did get the authorization to tear it down and replace. We're going to do 3 coils in the rear because we don't know what quality coils he's got. I've got it apart. I wanted to show you what I found. So coil came out. It doesn't look bad. Everything looks good. We don't see any burn throughs or anything. If you ever see any like black dots, you know, on this, that's normally, you know, a carbon track where the spark is coming through it. Don't see any of that. It did have dielectric grease in it, so that's okay. No idea what brand it is, and or maybe I do see what brand it is, but we'll just leave that alone. So anyway, we got that. All right. Also got the plug. I went ahead and pulled the plug out of that one. I was a little nervous because he put the insert in it. They did speak to him before I did that. He did say he put Loctite on it and got it in there good. So looks like he did. The plug came out nice and easy. I checked the gap on the plug. The spec on this, and somebody's got it off my screen now, 50, right over there, I think. Yep. Nope. Oh, it's on this screen. Let's go real quick. So I'm gonna make sure I give you guys the right number here. Spec is 51 to 55 thousandths, so we should be somewhere under that. You can see that. I know this gauge has been used for quite a long time, and we can see we're over 60. It's a new plug. They just weren't gapped properly. So I'm going to take and gap all 3 rear plugs. I'm going to gap all 6 plugs. I'm going to gap all the plugs and get those correct so that we don't have any issues there. That's not causing the issue, but obviously we don't want the gap to be too wide. It's going to take more energy to fire it. They're going to, you know, they're going to get wider as time goes on, and it's just going to make the plug not last as long as it should. So I'll get that corrected. We'll get the new coils in it. We are putting Denso coils in it. So, I mean, I'm good with these. Found a couple little other issues with some bolts and things we're going to take care of. But I'm going to get it back together. We'll come back. We're going to do the scope again on the new parts, and then, or on the new coil, and then we'll see what happens. It's been a crazy Thursday, and for us, Thursday is Friday because we're not open on Fridays. So, been a little bit of a hectic day. Got this little guy back together. Let me show you what we did do. I think the last time we talked, I was going to put the spark plugs in it. I think I was going to gap the spark plugs, right? But we ended up keeping the one in number 1 because it was brand new. But when we pulled out the other ones to gap them, they definitely were not new. Not saying they were incredibly worn, but at that point, I'm like, let's just put spark plugs in it. The client was in agreement, so they got new plugs in it. The 3 new coils on the back. This is the old coil off of the. I'm going to show you guys something on this coil too. I wish I had a new one to show you. Oh, I do have. Stand by. I think I threw them away. I don't think they've emptied the trash yet. Sorry guys. You can see how well planned we are for some of these videos. Oh, here they are. Yeah, well, I would have found them sooner or later. All right, let's look. So, I want to show you why I'm looking at this. So, if you look at this connector, this is the new one, okay, that he had on. And I want you to look at the way that connector is oriented. And then I want you to look at this one. You see how the locking tab is under on this one, and on the one of the other ones it's on top. This is the way every single other coil was. This is the only one that was like that was the one that he put in number 1 after the spark plug blew out. So this was the one we had the problem with. I'm going to show you why I think that this may be wound incorrectly. I could be wrong there. I'd love to hear comments from you that some of you that maybe run into this before. But I think this may be wound incorrectly. I'm going to show you why. All right, of course I forgot to tell y'all why I thought that that coil was wound backwards. When we were in this thing last time, and you guys can rewind the video and be sure that I'm saying this right, it's been a day or so. I think it was yesterday. I did not have to invert the red channel, right? So that number 1 cylinder, I did not have to invert it before, right? And if I don't invert it now, we can see it's upside down. So, let me see if I can't do this. Again, I haven't got my pen back. If I told you I lost my pen, I lost my pen. So, we can see it's upside down right now. Before, in order to get that pattern correct, I had to invert it, which sometimes we do have to invert them. But I shouldn't have to invert some and not others. That should have been a clue to me that something was wrong with that. But I did have to invert the yellow and the green trace to get them correct, but I did not have to invert the red previously. Now with this coil on it, I had to invert it to get it to be right, which matches all the other coils on there. So I'm gonna do a little research on that, but that's why I thought it was inverted, or why I think the winding, something was done backwards on the winding. So anyway, there you go. On with the video. Wherever we put this cut, there you go. So new ones are in. Went ahead. He had several bolts that were missing. So just some little bolts that were missing here. He had some bolts missing back there. He had some stuff here that wasn't right. This wasn't on. He had some kind of nuts on here. He did do some vacuum line work, and I may still work with those. They're kind of not really tight. I may replace those, but I wanted to let you guys know what we found. We did rethread all of the intake bolt inserts that are in the lower intake. They were a little bit tight. He said he had a problem with one of them, so I just went ahead and just ran a tap down through all of them. All those are good. I've got the pickup still on I'll put it back on number 5, number 4, and on number 1. And it has been running for a little bit, so these guys are a little warm. And you make sure they're making good contact, so you guys get a good view of the pattern. So let's come on inside. I'm gonna have to put this thing in gear, and if I put it in gear with the door open, it's gonna start dinging, and that's gonna annoy every one of you on the video. So we're not gonna do that. So here we go. That's why I'm getting inside with the door. All right. So first thing I want you to look at is fuel trims. So we see our fuel trims are running really good right now. Again, we always want to take short-term and long-term and add them together. So we're running about real close to 0 here, bumping around. Same thing on 2, right? So that's me revving it up in park, no issues. Obviously didn't have issues before like that. So now this is me in drive. I'm just going to go ahead. Remember before we had about a 10% correction when it would mess up. Not messing up right now. I'm power braking it right now. You can see the RPM, I'm up about 1800, and we're still running real close to 0 on both banks. So fuel trims look good. I have not cleared the codes. I don't like clearing codes until I am 100% done. I will do it before I do a final test drive. And the reason for that is I don't want fuel trims and stuff. When you clear codes, a lot of times you're clearing out memory on fuel trims and things. I don't like doing that until after I know it's fixed. So, all right. So, and this thing keeps dinging at me. Sorry, guys. This is the most haphazard video, but it's that kind of day. All right. Let's go ahead and let's look at... I just got a deep record. I'm sending it to somebody. They were interested in it. I did a before and after, so I'm going to do that for them. Let's go ahead and pull it up over here. And I think I've lost my pen. That is just the way this day's going. I really want to change the voltage on this. There we go. All right. So remember before what we had with that red one, how bad it looked. Now I see that yellow, that green, if you look at that green, it's a little down. I guarantee you, if the cameraman goes out there and pushes, I'll hold this on here. If the cameraman goes out there to that green lead and pushes it on the coil good, it's just the sticky part of it. There we go. See him? See he's pushing. He said it fell off. So it was close. All right, you're good. So that's just because it's just coming off. That's because it has been running for quite a while now, while I've been dealing with other things. So this one's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. We're gonna. It's the pickup that's off. That's falling off of it is why. The tape, the alien tape that I told you about, it's really, really good, but it's gotten real hot and it's just kind of melting off of it. So if we look at the red though now, we'll turn the green off. Look at that red now. Look how pretty that red is. Now, a lot of you will notice, and I didn't bring this up before, how this has got more than one strike happening right now. So that's a Ford deal. They do what's called a multi-strike, and you notice how it just went away. Now it's a single strike. They do multi-strike at idle. So once you come up off idle, once you get to a certain RPM, the multi-strike will go away. It's a really good way of telling if a coil has really completely failed, because a lot of times it won't even have the second strike at idle. You'll see like, you'll see all the coils have multiple strikes, and these really, if you see down here, have 3. If I change the time base, I can probably get that third one in there. It would be really great if I had my pen. There's the third one. So that's how many you should have, is 3. And then if I rev it, get it up high, there we go, boom, right? That's totally normal on a Ford. Look at your year models, you guys got to play around a little bit, but sometimes you'll get a bad coil and it just absolutely won't even do the third one, or you'll see one of them be really standout difference. It's a really good way. Sometimes a really bad coil, you can tell right away just by doing that. But we can see right now that that red one is now absolutely perfect. It matches dead on top of the yellow. We're wonderful. If we now rev it up, I'm now power braking it. We can see we do have some in cylinder happening right here. That's that hash. That's totally normal. We're getting a little bit of hash in there. That's normal, because we've got, you know, we've got air rushing in. We're firing. You're not going to get this perfect, beautiful line, you know, like this when you've got the engine revving up. So because there's a lot of turbulence happening there, and that turbulence is what we're seeing. What we're seeing here is the spark going across the spark plug, and we're seeing the air being moving around in there and moving that spark around. And I was telling you guys about Mac Vanderbrink, and he does a really good thing with that, where he actually does it on a spark plug out of the car, and he blows an air blower across it, and you can see it. I'd like to do that experiment one day, but you can see it coming across, you know, how it shakes on that, on the spark line. So so this vehicle's fixed. Some of you may have noticed that he does have a evap code. So, you know, we talked to him about that, and while it's in here, he says he thinks he's got a leak at the top of the fuel tank. So while it's in here, we're going to go ahead and do that inspection and see what's going on there. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to test drive it. And if you guys ever want to see this done or show a video of it, I'm going to go into the CAT efficiency here on the E-scan, and I'm going to test this CATs for him. So at least this is going to give me an idea if they're way out or if they're okay. Why I'm going to do that, and what I'm concerned about, is he did drive this vehicle 50 miles with the spark plug blown out of it. Now, he said he disconnected the coil, which probably saved him from catching something on fire, because he's going to have fuel firing into that cylinder, and he's going to, you know, fuel would have been coming out, atomizing and coming out, and if he would have had the coil still hooked up, it would have been sparked there. I will assure you something could have very easily caught on fire. So, but even though he had that spark plug open, it had blown out, and he had fuel blowing out of that, some of that raw fuel probably got down in the exhaust. I mean, we know it did. So I just want to be sure before I give it back to him that the CATs at least look normal, or if they don't look normal, I can at least let them know, hey, this could be an issue. I'm not going to condemn the CAT right now. Even if these fail, I'm not going to condemn them by this. Many times we can, but in this case, I'm not going to. I'm definitely going to let the car test the CATs. Just may take a little bit. We'll try to get that to run, the monitors to run. You guys know how hard that is on some cars, and we are very lucky here on that we can test drive cars long distances and stuff very easily. We don't have the kind of traffic a lot of you deal with. We'll try to get those to run. We'll try to get most of the monitors to run. Obviously, the evap's not going to run with a leak. But right now, this car's fixed. And, you know, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the video. I apologize if I did. I'm going to pop out of here. One of the things that I know that a lot of you are saying, that a lot of guys will say is, you know, a lot of guys talk about swaptronics, right? I'm going to be real straight with you. If this would have been something on the front of this engine, if this would have been one of these 3 coils, right? If this would have been one of these 3 coils, and we can see why that green lead wasn't picking up good, I would have swapped them. I would have swapped them. It would have been in and out, right? Now there's some pitfalls to that. You know, if you swap them, you could change it. It could start working, right? So if it's like a boot or something, and maybe it seals good, or you know, you change it, it's a little malleable, and you know, it may not skip again for for a little bit. So sometimes it can cause a problem, but I will tell you, I've done it hundreds of times. If it's a bad coil, it's going to move with the coil, and we're going to be in and out, right? I'm not opposed to that at all, and I will tell you that I was just talking to actually a friend of mine who's a fabulous technician. His name's Shannon. He's out in Los Angeles. Shannon, shout out to you. I know you're gonna watch. But we were talking about just swapping stuff, and you know, he agrees. It's like you're wanting to get in, you're wanting to get out. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand the pitfalls of it. But here's the thing: you still need to know how to test it like this, because you're not going to take this intake plenum off, swap coils, put the intake plenum back together, and run it. I mean, that's a really big waste of time. You know, and what happens if you're living somewhere where there's rust and this EGR tube won't come off? I mean, there's lots of downfalls to that. You want to know why you're going in there. You want to know that you're going in the right direction. So, you know, that's. I don't want y'all to think that I'm opposed to doing stuff like swapping things around. There's a time for it, and then there's a time not to do it. Okay. So, anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you. Appreciate you guys watching as always. If you like, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit that notification bell. Maybe we'll show you how we test out the evaporator core on this one. If not, we'll get in another one. But we appreciate you watching. And I said evaporator core, guys. I'm sorry, guys. Evaporative system. I'm done. This day's over. This week's over. We're gonna move on. I hope you guys like this video. We'll see you in the next one.